Hello everybody, it's Dr. Stuart A. Swerdlow.
And Janet Diane Moya Swerdlow.
And Princess Jasmine.
Of the Caucasus.
Yes, she's the Princess of the Caucasus.
She's, in case you want to know, she's not a husky, she's a Yakutian Laika.
Yes.
So you can look that up.
They are related to polar Russian wolves. Polar Arctic Russian wolves. Mm.
Yeah, and this is the female, and we have a male, which he's the talker that you hear sometimes behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm. He's on the floor behind us, but he might pop up at some time. Anyway, I have some important information to give you, and it's a little difficult to read, so please forgive me if I take a little bit of time. And I realize also, having watched myself on some recent videos, that I have been squinting, and it's not good. I'm gonna try not to do it. I'm gonna bulge my eyes like that. Anyway, there is a website called Hill.tv, which does very good political information. And in September of 2018, President Trump told Hill TV that he was going to order the release of classified documents.
That's Jade, I told you, he's a talker.
He doesn't like when I talk about politics.
Jade.
You know, because he is Russian, and he gets upset when people think that the Russians affected everything, so he makes comments. Anyway, he released President...
That's his comment.
Jay.
See if we can get him up there.
Jay. That released the FBI and the Department of Justice and other U.S. intelligence agencies that may have done wrong in the Russia probe. See, that's why he's getting upset. It's okay, Jay, I'm not going to talk about you. He thinks that he was sent here as a spy for Russia.
Jay.
Yes, he said, no, I wasn't. Okay, so they have listed 10 documents that have the greatest chance of upsetting the people in Washington, D.C., aka the Democrats, if they are declassified. So I'm going to go through each one. It's long, but I'm just going to give salient points. I'm not going to go through the details.
They can look up that link if they're really interested.
Yes, right. So the first one is the Christopher Steele's confidential human source reports at the FBI. And this time, it shows that the FBI handlers met in the summer and fall of 2016 to discuss anti-Trump dossier. And if it's revealed, it will show that the FBI shared sensitive information with Steele, who's a British spy, such as the existence of the classified Crossfire hurricane operation, which targeted the Trump campaign. It will also show that the ultimate opposition research client was Hillary Clinton and the Democratic National Committee. That'll be a big one.
Yes.
I think bigger than Bill Clinton in heels and a cocktail dress. Yeah. Which, I'm jealous because I wouldn't look so good in.
That's true.
So, second one, it's called the 53 House Intel Interviews. And this one is the first evidence that a lawyer tied to the Democratic National Committee had Russia-related contacts at the CIA. Number 3 is the Stephen Halper documents. And it shows that European-based American academic Stephen Halper and a young assistant named Azra Turk worked as FBI sources. These documents would show that intelligence agencies worked with Halper, who directed his activity and was paid for his contacts with Trump officials who were directed by the U.S. government's Russia probe. 4. The October 2016 FBI email chain. This is a key document identified by Representative Nunez and his investigators. The dossier and other evidence is to support that Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA, a warrant targeting the Trump campaign in October 2016, and there could be major repercussions if that's revealed. 5. Page/Papadopoulos exculpatory statements. These documents show that the 2 Trump aides were recorded telling undercover assets or captured in intercepts insisting on their innocence. FBI undercover source in September 2016 said that the Trump campaign was not trying to obtain Clinton documents from Russia and considered so would be treason. and it could be another case of FBI or DOJ misconduct. Which, by the way, I need to say that Trump has revamped the FBI. They are not the same organization as they were in 2016 or even 2017. 6, the Gang of Eight, briefing which sounds like Chinese. Gang of Five, Gang of Eight. They'll all be executed. And these are a series of classified briefings which looks at the FBI and DOJ provided key leaders in Congress in the summer of 2018 that identify shortcomings in the Russia collusion narrative and actually changed the minds of lawmakers who were not initially convinced of FISA abuses or FBI raids. So this one shows that FISA was abused and the FBI was doing bad things. 7, the Steele spreadsheet. It shows as much as 90% of the claims could not be corroborated and were debunked or turned out to be open source internet rumors. And that was from Steele's efforts. 8, the Steele interview, which confirmed that the DOJ inspectors general interviewed the former British intelligence operative for as long as 16 hours while working with Clinton's opposition research firm, Fusion GPS, which, as you recall, during the hearing in Washington, they didn't admit, they didn't know who Fusion GPS is. It is clear from documents quickly forced into the public view in lawsuits that Steele admitted in the fall of 2016 that he was desperate to defeat Trump, had a political deadline to make his dirt public, and was working for the DNC Clinton campaign and was leaking information to the news media. And that would have very serious repercussions. He would be guilty of treason. 9, the redacted sections of the third FISA renewal application. This was signed by the then Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, and that it would reveal sections of information on the application is that it contained both misleading information and evidence of intrusive tactics used by the U.S. government to infiltrate Trump's orbit. And finally, 10, records of allies' assistance. Now, this is very important because multiple sources have said a handful of U.S. allies overseas, Great Britain, Australia, and Italy, were asked by FBI efforts to check on Trump's connections to Russia. So in other words, they illegally spied on him going around the U.S. law. And the documents might help explain Attorney General Barr's recent comments that, quote, the use of foreign intelligence capabilities and counterintelligence capabilities against an American political campaign to me is unprecedented and it's a serious red line that has been crossed, unquote. So these documents and many others, many others, will be revealed at the appropriate time and show the public who the Democrats and the deep state really are. And that's why we're seeing all these suicides, bailouts, people disappearing, death, all these. Yes, this is why. They know what's coming and they're getting out. Now, speaking of horrendous things, some things are being done in the name of science research that are very horrifying. Did you know that?
Yes, of course. I report on that quite often.
And most Americans, probably most people in the world, don't realize what's really going on. And when people think of crime, they think of drug abuse, violence, and so on, murder. But the truth is that the worst crimes are committed by doctors, as we know, scientists, and researchers who wear lab coats. For example, well, earlier this year, Trump administration ended all internal National Institute of Health experimentation using aborted human fetal tissue. And when that happened, many people thought all that would come to an end. But it didn't, because what's happening is babies are terminated at abortion clinics in university-affiliated hospitals. The remains of these unwanted children are harvested for research. College professors, eternally hungry for lucrative federal grants, solicit the Institute of Health for funds for nightmarish human fetal tissue research on animals. They're getting upset about the animal research. I'm sorry. I won't talk about it after this.
Yeah, the two dogs are playing together. That's
Okay, and this is interesting also. University of California, San Francisco, the abortion training capital of the U.S., experimenters recently used $2 million government slush fund to transplant the intestines removed from 18 to 24-week-old aborted fetuses and put them on the backs of 6 to 8-week-old mice. Why would you do that? They also took reproductive tracts from 5 to 22-week-old human fetuses, which included aborted twins. Who could abort twins? And put them in mice which were dosed with synthetic estrogen. Why are they doing this? Then a team in China, this is China now, of course made headlines when they created a human monkey embryo.
Yeah, we had
Planned
discussed
by
that
the
one
apes. We
before.
did that.
Yeah.
And in Japan, I think I spoke with a couple weeks ago, they have created a rat-human hybrid.
Yeah, I think we talked about that.
Now the human cells will be grown in rat and mouse embryos, then brought to term in a surrogate animal as part of experiments said to be carried out at the University of Tokyo. It is theoretically possible to combine the genetic material of dozens of different creatures into one super creature.
That's scary.
Yes, and inevitably that scientists would cook up all sorts of bizarre hybrids in their labs. Well, this is what has been revealed, and I have told you for many years that the hybrids have already been made for decades and decades. This is just what they're telling you now.
And did you talk about that down in the labs, Dulce, New Mexico, where there was a hybrid war and all kinds of things
since the 50s
that were going on, but now they're telling people.
Correct. And the Germans actually did such experiments in the 1920s and 30s. Now, back to my topic that always it just aggravates me, these people, but I just have to tell you. But this is actually a positive.
Yeah.
Because a woman, Dr. Kanta Ahmed, who's a physician and daughter of Sunni Muslims who immigrated to Britain from Pakistan, said that she's not a fan of radical Muslims and Islamic propaganda. In an interview with Laura Ingraham on Fox News, Ahmed let loose on leftist lawmakers, Representatives Ilhan Omar of Minnesota and Rashida Tlaib of Michigan. Ahmed directed withering condemnation against the two outspoken critics of Israel and apologists for the Palestinians' behavior. She said, "What you are seeing is full-blown Islamist propaganda," Ahmed said. "These are professional victim-mongering women who unfortunately have been elected to Congress but are using every tool in the playbook of the Muslim Brotherhood." I agree with this. She's a smart woman, this one. "And they're using Islamic tactics to invert reality, and what they're seeking, they have a grotesque Holocaust envy." So they're taking what happened to the Jews and applying it now to the Palestinians, which is, of course, baloney. Ahmed's contention that Omar and Tlaib are using Islamic propaganda amounts to her saying that the two congresswomen are doing the work of radical Islam as they delegitimize Israel and stir up increased anger against the U.S. ally. And whether Americans now have elected these women to Congress, they're actually doing radical Islam's dirty work. I agree. And I have renamed them. They are known now as Ill-Wind Omar and Rash Idea Tlaib. Brilliant on my part, I think, yeah. They are deep state setups. Really, they are not political people. They're puppets who are as Muslim as Hitler was. And I am in contact with real Muslims in the Middle East who are against them and all radical Islam.
Well, it's
and
like
I will be discussing that in the near future.
It's like we've talked about it in other countries, is people who worship or who are Islamists and Jewish and Christians all live together peacefully.
And I've been called many names on the internet. I'm going to get to that at the end. By ignorant people who don't understand anything. But I will tell you that I have many contacts with high-level Islamic people in several Islamic countries who agree with me. Okay, now to Israel. Israel is readying plans for a forceful military strike against Hamas, which Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said this week while he was visiting Ukraine. And he was asked whether his government could properly deal with the threat posed by the Hamas terrorist groups in Gaza. And he said, and I quote, "I am preparing a massive campaign. It will be different than anything we have ever seen before. I cannot elaborate on the preparations, but we are properly positioned for such a scenario." He wouldn't say that unless there was even more than that.
Right.
And when he was asked about Iran, Netanyahu said about the Islamic Republic, they do not have immunity. And he warned that we will act against them wherever necessary, and I am not ruling out any place. And the Israelis have the capability to find anyone, anywhere on this earth, even under Antarctica, and they will. Now, Netanyahu has the backing of the United States, Russia, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and as well as Egypt and India. There's a lot going on behind the scenes because all these countries do not want these radicals to exist anymore. Now, I have been getting many questions, those of you who are on my site and read my Q&A in the comments, about what's going on in Brazil, the rainforest, oh, the trees are burning down, the earth is going to burn up, blah, blah. And Brazil's Amazon rainforest has seen a number of fires this year, and the National Institute for Space Research, have you ever heard of that? It says its satellite data showed an 84% increase from last year's fires. And it comes weeks after President Jair Bolsonaro got rid of the Agency of Deforestation and so on. The largest rainforest in the world, the Amazon, I like this statement, it's a vital carbon store that slows down the pace of global warming. No, it doesn't, because there is no global warming. In fact, Brazil had snow and ice this year. So, really, they had the coldest winter ever. Meanwhile, U.S. space agency NASA said that overall fire activity in the Amazon basin is lower this year than before. And there was a report earlier this week about the city of São Paulo. I have been there, it's horrible. There's like 25 million people.
I know, there's a lot of people.
Oh my goodness, it's a terrible place. It was blacked out, and that was caused by smoke from the Amazon fires. However, meteorologists are saying the smoke actually came from controlled fires in nearby Paraguay, which is much closer than the Amazon region. And the weather patterns will not support smoke from the Amazon going south to Sao Paulo, because in the southern hemisphere it goes north, which should blow it away from Sao Paulo.
Right.
So that was a very, people, and stupid North Americans in Europe, they don't understand where, blah, blah, whatever the news says, right? So Mr. Bolsonaro brushed off the idea that, and he said, it is a season of the queimada. Queimada means burning or burning up. Well, farmers use it to clear the land. And he said he's been called names. He said, I've been called Captain Chainsaw, now I'm called Captain Nero. He says, but he said, there is nothing abnormal about the climate this year, and the Amazon region is just a little below average in rainfall. So this is a BS story. I have told people on my site, and now I will tell you people on the podcast.
So if you're a member of our site, you can ask these kind of questions, and that's where we will answer your questions,
Yes,
on the Q&A member side of our
And again, I
site.
have many, many, many contacts in South America, many, as you know. And Bolsonaro is working closely with President Trump to clear space to expose the openings to alien bases in the western and northern Amazon. These aliens are hostile and are being removed. And you will notice also an uptick in the earthquakes in this region, particularly in western Brazil, which there is no fault line there, and in southern and eastern Peru, southern and eastern Ecuador, all bordering these areas, and even in northern Bolivia. These are attacks. And I will say more in my class in September. Speaking of things going on in the earth, and I've said this so many times, but this is a new article which just came out in the New York Times this past August 21st. And it's about the eruption of supervolcano in Yellowstone, which would devastate the entire world. Now, there's a man named Brian Walsh who wrote a book called End Times, and who wrote that there are 20 supervolcanoes on the Earth, and that is the greatest threat to human life. And he said, what would happen if the caldera erupted? He said, first would come increasingly intense earthquakes, a sign that magma beneath the Yellowstone was rushing to the surface. The magma would burst through the ground in titanic eruption, discharging their toxic innards of the earth to the air, and it would continue for days, burying Yellowstone in lava within a 40-mile radius. Well, guess what? There's been 133 earthquakes just this last month alone in Yellowstone. The super eruption would bury Wyoming, Utah, and Colorado in several feet of toxic ash, and would spread here to the Midwest. Crops would be destroyed, pasture land would be contaminated, power lines and electrical transformers run, blah, blah, blah. We know this, and the effects would be felt around the world. And on the short term, the toxic cloud would block the sunlight, the global temperatures would plunge significantly and not return to normal for several years. And guess what? Scientists said they have just discovered new thermal activity in Yellowstone National Park, which is the new thermal activity is the size of 4 football fields. That's
big.
A lot of stuff.
It is.
And the area used to be covered by trees, and now it's an area where there's a bunch of dead trees, bright soil, and a hot spot. Mm-hmm. So I warned about Yellowstone also for years, and when they give these little tidbits, oh, but they say it won't happen in your lifetime. But every week there's another story, so they're warning you. Okay? Now, my last story here for today, as you know, they did a survey conducted by a website called Big 7 Travel, and they asked 1.5 million people. They didn't ask me. Mm-hmm. They asked 1.5 million people, which are the friendliest states in America? Guess who was last? You know, because you say so. No. New York. Yes. And in fact, the 5 bottom states also included Delaware, Massachusetts, and New Jersey.
That's not a surprise to me.
Yeah. But guess what the top 5 were?
Where?
Wyoming was ranked 5 because people said they had a sense of community and a safe feeling. Yeah, with the volcano, a safe feeling.
But there are no people in Wyoming either.
No, this is true. Texas took the 4th spot. Okay. Shooting on the freeway,
murders every day.
Murders every single day. Yeah.
I don't know about that.
South Carolina was in 3rd place. Well, we like South Carolina. And guess who was above that? Tennessee, where one of our children just moved. Because of Southern hospitality.
Mm-hmm. I was there, and they were very nice.
But the number 1 friendly state, which I find absolutely hilarious, guess Minnesota.
Oh,
yes,
Minnesota nice.
The Midwest state of Minnesota was number 1 as the friendliest state in America. And they said it's called Minnesota nice for a reason. Mm-hmm. These people obviously were not from the United States. Because Minnesota nice is a cover because it means that they're fake friendly. That's what it's Minnesota nice, it's fake. And as you know, we've had a lot of issues with people from Minnesota. They're not so nice. Oh, Ilwind Omar's from there. How about that one? Mm-hmm. They're backstabbing and not so friendly. Trust God on that. Well, I have more to say, but should I wait till the end?
That's up to you.
I will just say this one part and then I'll put the rest at the end. It's been shown on our comments form on YouTube that people saying, oh, Stewart is a Zionist. Yeah, I am. And I'm very proud of being a Zionist, and so is Boris Johnson, and so is President Trump, and even so is President Putin. Because you know what? You don't know what it means, those of you who made the nasty comments. Zionism has nothing to do with racism. That's because the UN 20 some odd years ago decided to call it that by a bunch of fundamentalist radical Muslim supporters. That would be like if Nazi supporters said that, everyone should hate Jews and being a Jew is a racist. So it's the same thing. Zion, which is the word in Hebrew, is a term that means the point of emanation for creation. That's what it means. So yeah, I'm for that. Appointed emanation for creation. I'm all for that. So I'm a Zionist. Yes, absolutely correct. Just like the internet says being a patriot means you're racist and isolationist. Well, look up in Webster's dictionary. I've said this before. A patriot is someone who supports and loves their country. I am that too. So I'm a Zionist patriot. So deal with that. Those of you who don't understand what that means, you're ignorant, stupid, and brainwashed by CNN, BBC, and all the other deep state news services. Go on.
So, I was interested before I get into my news about President Trump. Remember they made fun of him because he said he was the chosen one, and
he is chosen.
But can you explain that so that these people can understand?
Well, that's part of my class in September.
Well, you can give them just a little.
I'll just give you a little
hint.
tidbit, but it's been predicted by rabbis decades ago, before anyone knew who Trump existed, that he would come out of nowhere and help the state of Israel and bring the Messiah back. Mm-hmm. So in that respect, that he is chosen.
So there have been a lot of things said in Israel, correct, about President Trump, and President Trump was just reiterating what was said.
Yeah, he's not being arrogant by saying I'm the chosen. He's telling you what the rabbis have said in Israel and all over the world. Yeah. And so people it's because the news twists everything and puts a negative spin on it. Exactly. Especially the CNN, which their whole life is devoted against Trump. It's a pity on them that they have no other mission in life. Yeah. It's very sad for them.
And so these are the kinds of things that we discuss at our classes as well as at our webinars and on our membership side.
And I have to say something else. I'm wearing this for Scotland. You know, my name is Scottish Stuart. And I received information just today that I have many, many, many wonderful followers in Scotland who love me, and more than they said I even realize or know. I'm thinking what I'm hearing, please come back to Scotland. We will vote for you and separate Scotland, make it independent, and you could be emperor. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so my point is, get a membership, expansions.com, less than $1 a day. And we have lots of interesting discussions about politics and everything else. And most importantly, how to take care of your own mind pattern. So before I get into my topics, I wanted to tell you, if you want to know who and what we are, Hyperspace Helper and Decoding Your Life. These are the two books that will explain to you, this is all you need, our basic platform that we teach from. These two books, Decoding Your Life, Hyperspace Helper.
They need more than that.
If they just want to know who and what we are, this can get started with our teachings. This is universal law and this is hyperspace work. So very excellent work. And then, of course, Stuart's autobiography, Montauk, The Alien Connection. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this will also tell you.
That could be Clinton dressed up on the cover.
That could. So I'm just telling you, so before you criticize, find out who we are, get a membership. Ask your questions, read what we have to say, and don't just base it off of this little bit of time you have with us once a week on our podcast. Mm-hmm. So back to Trump. Greenland.
I love Greenland.
I love Greenland too. So as you know, there was a little to-do because Trump wanted to buy Greenland, and then the prime minister called it an absurd discussion. And so he's canceled his trip to Denmark, but now apparently, he wants to increase the U.S. presence in the Arctic for strategic interests, and now he wants to open a Greenland consulate.
Well, I also heard that there are some people in the government who are now making maps showing Greenland as part of the United States.
Well, I believe that. And so there's a reason that it's happening, and apparently now the Prime Minister called, they made up, and now they're on good terms again.
They are?
Yes.
Nobody told me that.
Yes, just was announced, and this meeting apparently was last week.
You know why? Because last week, if you remember, I said we have to invade Denmark and then automatically get Greenland. Yeah. So they got afraid, maybe and then they was like, okay, you can come.
And now he thinks she's actually a very nice person.
Oh, really?
And they're going to have, they want the consulate. They want a consulate. Apparently, we must have had one at one time because they want to reestablish a consulate in Nuuk, in UK. Nuuk.
Oh, Nuuk. It's Nuuk.
Nuuk is good for me.
No, that says very bad things.
Well, Nuuk. Okay.
Nuuk.
So anyway, it's part of a broader plan to increase the U.S. presence in the Arctic. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens because once Greenland's out there the way it's been being pushed, something's going on in Greenland.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's a code. He doesn't really want Greenland. There's something else going on. And if you read what SB2 says, you will know what.
We all know that there's more than this that meets the eye, but this is what's being pushed in mainstream news. And the other thing which was really interesting to me, of course, going on with our upcoming presidential debates, if you can call it that.
Who listens to that crap?
Joe Biden posed a shockingly hypothetical question to voters at a New Hampshire rally last week,
I heard.
asking the crowd to imagine Obama's assassination.
I imagine it every day.
Now, what was interesting to me that with all the gun controversy going on and all the shootings going on, why is this being said and promoted? Apparently, this happened at the closing of a town hall meeting on the campus of Dartmouth College. And not only that, but Joe Biden made reference to the 1968 assassinations of Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King, which he recalled to have happened in the late 70s.
Which is a little off.
A little off. And then, again, this particular question, they said apparently this was just right after celebrating his 11th anniversary of his selection as Obama's vice president. So
It's longer than that.
that's what they said in here.
That doesn't make sense,
Yep.
does it?
That's what it said. And then apparently it said that there's so many blunders and slip-ups during televised interviews that his campaign staff are considering limiting his public appearances.
Yeah, limiting him as speaking.
Apparently he said he supports truth over facts, which is kind of an oxymoron there.
Really?
And then he incorrectly stated that the two mass shootings in El Paso and Dayton earlier this month occurred in Michigan and Houston. So there's a lot of problems going on
This is who
there.
you want to be president? Seriously?
Now listen to their other one. Marianne Williamson unveiled her plans for a Secretary of Peace with a Peace Academy.
Oh, yes, the one in pale pink, isn't
She wants it to rival West Point, and she wants criminal justice to turn to healing-oriented approaches.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Bye-bye, Mary.
She said the Department of Peace would be overseen by the Secretary of Peace.
Right, and will they all be wearing like fluffy clothes and cotton clothes and things like that?
And she wants to model this after the military service academies.
And everyone gets lollipops and candy.
And she wants to study how the elements of our food supply affect our behavior. So we're going from
I want
somebody
to know what she eats.
who doesn't know what he's talking about, obviously, to somebody.
Someone who's la 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 la.
So I don't know what's going to happen with the Democrats. But again, they always put on a show.
Seriously?
Here we are.
I don't know. Anyone would even think of voting for any of them.
And then, of course, I've been telling you about this Jeffrey Epstein case. And, you know, the thing about this is so many things bizarre has happened. It's like a soap opera because every day they reveal something else, some new painting or some new this or some new person shows up. Well, this last thing, they said, one of the last things, that apparently he had a severed cat's head left on Vanity Fair's editor-in-chief Graydon Carter's front lawn to try and intimidate him back in 2006 to stop investigating his affairs.
Well, that poor cat.
Yes. But one thing I wanted to mention is that and this actually came on one of our readers, talked about Epstein and then the Attorney General, whose last name is Barr. And as we all know, there's a disease called Epstein-Barr.
That's right.
And so Epstein-Barr is out there everywhere in the news. So I thought that was kind of an interesting correlation. And from what I can tell, anybody who had anything to do with him, whoever visited or knew him, had to know of his depravities.
Yeah.
Right? It can't be ignored. So with that in mind, Prince Andrew, of course, is all over the news. And now he fears never being able to return to America.
Yeah, he should.
He should, because
he'd be arrested.
And he obviously knew things. Everybody who was in and out of that house, from what they're describing, something was off. Whether you worked there or whether you knew him.
And I would say the same thing about Buckingham Palace.
Yes, absolutely. So there's a lot of things going on that a lot of people need to be nervous about. And then this next one was interesting because, speaking of Buckingham Palace, Harry and Meghan, as you know, have been in the news, and everybody's trashing them now for their jet setting.
But they really are.
And that they're going all over the place. And all these people are talking about, save the planet, whatever.
You know that the first two nannies quit because they couldn't stand her?
Well, a lot of people
quit.
A lot of people have quit. But this was the interesting part to me. Because all these stars who are out there, we always talk about the show for you, how they're all out there talking about save the planet. Well, they're all jet setting all over the world in their private jets. And then they're talking about how much...
Saving the Earth.
Right, carbon, whatever.
Right.
Okay, so now the big thing was to try and save Harry and Meghan was Elton John talked about that he sent money to carbon offset firms in order to,
compensate for their use. Well, that's not going to change. It's like, I broke your window, but I'm going to give money to a glass company.
Yes, and that's what now it says that all these jet-setting stars are doing. And this reminded me of the Catholic indulgences, which people would pay to keep them from going to hell. And interestingly enough, when I researched Catholic indulgences, they still do them.
Really?
Yes. But so you
should do that.
So you should read the link because it was very interesting. And they're saying that it is what people think they are, and so on and so forth. But they're still a thing that Catholics can do. So Catholic indulgences, and to me, that's what it sounds like. That these jet-setting stars, they're calling them.
Oh, they're just a bunch of phony baloney.
Yes, but you have to pay attention to what they're doing and saying because this, why you go and you support these people is always beyond me.
And the other thing is, who cares about them? Who cares what ring Megan has on her finger or what the hairstyle is of hair? Who cares?
And how they're showing so much skin.
Get a life.
Right.
You know, who cares
You're
about them?
living your life through these people who are
They do
false.
nothing. They have no job. They do nothing.
Yeah, and they said that Prince Andrew was taking a break at Balmoral.
Yeah, a break from what?
Right.
A break from his break.
A break from his break. Absolutely. They don't do anything anyway.
Really?
So, and then...
What does the Queen do? Hello. That she gets paid $1 billion.
And then they said how she lived a modest lifestyle despite her millions or billions or whatever. It's like, I don't think that's modest. Yes, I would.
Let me try it.
Me too. I'll go with you on that one. So anyway, so that one I wanted you to be aware of. And like I said, you need to watch what's going on and go through these lies, these media lies, and these things are building you up to try and attain, and you don't want this stuff. And then the next thing I wanted to talk to you about is, you and I have talked about this, that more and more now they're actually showing killing. You know, it used to be they would say, well, people died. And then they kind of show scenes from far away. And then they went to, this is the moment before they died. Now they're actually showing killing.
Right. It's horrible.
So it's horrible because that's part of New World religion is the killing ritual.
Right.
And so
sacrifice.
They're trying to desensitize people. So this I didn't watch because there's a video. I didn't watch it. But I want to tell you about it because I think it's really horrible. It's called The Horrifying Moment a Blood-Soaked Mother Screams, I don't want to die, as her 10-year-old daughter begs her to stay alive after being fatally stabbed by her ex-husband in a cafe in Turkey.
Oh my God.
So apparently they were fighting over a custody battle. But the point is this, these are not shows. This is real. These are people's life. They're in pain and they're suffering. And we don't need to be watching this stuff because it's desensitizing you.
Horrible. That's not
to things.
news.
And they're getting you so that you are prepared to be so desensitized to killing that it doesn't affect you anymore.
And then you actually want to see it.
Yes. So anyway, in fact, there was I didn't report on it, I don't think, but there was an article not too long ago in the UK about a police officer who was actually pulling over and finding people when they were filming this horrible accident. He was pulling people out and said, you want to go see the dead guy? And the people said, oh, no. But because he's trying to show these people this is not a game. This is real life. It's people are hurting and dying, and people are just, standing back and filming this stuff. It's not a show. So anyway, keep these things in mind. And now this one, there's two things wrong with this story. And they only pointed out in the article one thing. So one is about a Canadian single father who
right there, Canadian, wrong.
Canceled a babysitter when he discovered the babysitter was a 28-year-old man. So he had two sons. I don't think it says the ages, but I remember them as something like 5 and 8, I think. And he didn't want a 28-year-old man babysitting.
Well, who arranged that?
Well, just listen. So I found them on a website, apparently. So this prospective babysitter is reported him for violating his human rights because of gender and age. So now this father is being investigated by the Alberta Human Rights Commission because a complaint was filed against him.
First of all, didn't he know he was a man?
No, he was looking for a babysitter, and apparently this person answered the ad, and when he said that he was a 28-year-old male,
I see.
The man with a 5 and an 8-year-old child said, I don't want a 28-year-old male, but he didn't say that. He said his dinner plans fell through, so he no longer required a sitter. But this man went ahead anyway and claimed discrimination, and he's being investigated.
Well, that's ridiculous. He's just looking for attention.
But apparently it's also in 2014, he filed a case against a woman who said she was looking for a female sitter. So that went all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada before it was dismissed. Okay, so that's what they're telling you about in the article. What is wrong, and this is not the first parent that I've heard do this, and this is why I'm bringing this to your attention, is you do not look for a babysitter online.
Yeah, really.
You do not leave your child with somebody you don't know.
Right.
And this is not the first person, and I'm talking about, I've heard what I would call relatively intelligent people complaining because they went to some sitter's house and the sitter wasn't there and they'd never met this person before and they're just going to drop their kid off. It's like, and then you wonder why there are problems and crimes against children. Just like I've said to you, same thing with this Jeffrey Epstein things. Where were the parents? These are underage girls. They claim as young as 14, and some of them younger. They
Even
say
8 years old.
And some of them, they say the parents actually sold the children to Epstein, and he was proud of all that stuff. So I'm just telling you, you know, you don't look for a babysitter online. This is ridiculous to start with. And that's not even talked about in this article. Only the violation rights things. Right?
It's the media does that.
That's what I'm telling you. You don't look for a sitter online. You know, no one should watch your children unless you absolutely know that
I wouldn't look for a dog sitter online. I wouldn't trust anyone with them.
Right. So think about this. What's going on out there? And I didn't get the link, and I meant to last time, and I forgot that this time as well. But I wanted to bring this story forward as well. It was about a former, I think, NBA player. I think he's 34 years old, if I remember.
Yeah.
And he in Florida had permits to carry weapon or to have weapons, and some of them, I guess, were, because I don't have the article in front of me, but they were, you know, what do you call them? More dangerous type of weapons. He was moving from Florida to New York, and he had these weapons in the back of his car. And he was stopped on a traffic violation for whatever reason. They searched his car. He wound up being arrested for having these in his possession, which I understand because they were legal in Florida, but not New York. The next part I don't understand. They took him to trial, and they jailed him for 3.5 years, 34-year-old man. So to me, that's totally
wrong.
Bizarre,
That's
because he didn't commit a crime. He, you know, obviously he should have known certain things, maybe had a fine, maybe even take his weapons away in New York.
Right.
But to jail him for 3.5 years is totally wrong. So especially since they were legal in Florida and he did have a permit in Florida. So you probably might have seen that article, but I wanted to give you my opinion on that. And then here we have in Idaho. Where are we? Idaho. I'll find it here in a minute. But anyway, there was a child abuser, 31, who I think has mental issues, because anybody who's a child abuser in my mind has a mental problem to start with, right?
A little bit.
A little bit. So, child abuser, 31, an inmate, becomes the first one in the country to get sex reassignment surgery. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that the state of Idaho must provide sex reassignment surgery to inmate Adri Edmo. Apparently, Edmo had been housed in a men's prison since he began serving time on a charge of sexually abusing a child younger than 16 in April of 2012, then was diagnosed with gender dysphoria 2 months after being sentenced, and apparently he was receiving hormone therapy and counseling.
It was a man that became a woman?
It's transgender, that's a man who thinks he's a woman.
Isn't it?
Because there was no sex, he was living as a woman.
Oh, okay.
He's living as a woman,
okay.
And all this transgender stuff is kind of strange these days. But, now this one's what I'm telling you, this person has mental issues, so listen to this. So in 2015, she tried to castrate herself with a razor.
Don't even tell me.
In 2016, she managed to remove a testicle. Now, to me, that's somebody that's...
God. I told you not to tell me.
Somebody is mentally ill. Okay, so in 2017, she contends that the state's refusal to provide her with gender confirmation surgery amounts to cruel and unusual punishment. And then in December, prison officials claimed she was too mentally unstable to receive the irreversible medical procedure.
Yeah.
That was, I guess, in May. But in December, the judge still ruled to say she could have it, even though everybody's saying she's mentally unstable. And this is what I'm telling you, is that these kind of people are being experimented on. They're being exploited and they're being abused by the system.
Yes.
Right? And speaking of...
Well, the system created them.
Yes. And speaking of abused and exploited people, now this happened right here, Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I happen to be very proud of this person's decision. Peter Meyer has a chain of stores here in Michigan.
Oh, yeah.
He's a Republican congressional candidate who decided to ban a London-based drag troupe whose members have Down syndrome from performing at a building he owns during Art Prize's Project One exhibition. Now, apparently there was a panel discussion at the Grand Rapids Art Museum with attendees and members of something called DisArt, which is a Grand Rapids-based organization who wanted to sponsor the drag show, and said Meyer's decision to prohibit the event was based on misunderstanding and discrimination. These are people with Down syndrome. The rights of these 6 performers are being taken away, said the co-founder of DisArt. That's discrimination. That's what we call ableism. However, on August 19th, Meyer sent a letter to DisArt, said he objected to the event because of the presence of the London, England group Drag Syndrome, features drag queens and kings with Down syndrome. And he said that he banned the group over concerns of exploitation of the vulnerable.
I agree.
And there's so much, that's the person I was just talking about. That's a vulnerable person, and they're being exploited by the system.
I think it's exploitation of people with Down syndrome,
yes,
who don't really understand what the heck they're doing.
That's what he said. He said he's unsure whether Down syndrome performers are giving or are in a position to give their full and informed consent. He said the accusation that I'm discriminating against the disabled is incredibly offensive and highly disingenuous.
I agree with him.
Now, he said that he spoke with dozens of members of the LGBT community, disability activists, and parents whose children have Down syndrome. And he said that in nearly every conversation, concerns were raised about the potential exploitation of the vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And he also claims, which I give him credit for this, that he, even though he's running for public office, he said his decision to ban the Drag Syndrome show was not political. However, it was the DisArt people who leaked the letter. So he wasn't trying to exploit anybody. He was just trying to say this isn't go along with what I believe in. And I highly applaud this person. If I was in his district, I would vote for him.
I'd buy more stuff from his stores.
And this reminds me also of the movie this next story reminds me of remember I told you about the hunting movie that got, they decided to pull. It was originally named Red versus Blue. Okay, this next one, because I'm going to say, speaking of exploitation of the vulnerable, there's a new Universal movie which portrays 6th graders playing with sex toys. Now this movie is called Good Boys, and it's aimed at teenage audiences, showing 6th graders playing with sex toys.
I think they were 11 years old.
However, the movie has an R rating. An R is 17 plus. So it's aimed at teenagers, I guess 17 to 19.
But it's about 11-year-olds.
It's about 11-year-olds playing with sex toys. So to me, this is exploitation. These actors were little kids.
Where were their parents?
Exactly. Exploitation of the vulnerable. I like that term. Exploitation of the vulnerable.
That's what it is.
Yes, so in the film's trailer, there's an actor. I watched the trailer of this one. This Seth Rogen is an adult, jokes with the main child actors that they can't even watch the trailer for their own movie because it's too messed up for kids your age, which is true. And they all sit around and use the F word everywhere. And these are little kids, and that's exploiting them.
Mm-hmm. And we wonder why the society is like it is.
Exactly. And then it says the first scene in the trailer from the actual movie portrays the preteen boys playing with a gimp mask. I had to look that one up.
Oh.
Gimp mask. Apparently it's what they use. It's a leather mask for bondage. That's what I read.
Oh.
Dildos and other sex toys I also had to look up the meaning of because I didn't know.
Well, you knew what that was.
No, I didn't. Not the ones I'm not telling you about.
Oh.
I know what a dildo is, but I didn't know what a gimp mask was, and there was other things I didn't know what it was. So anyway, so there was swearing profusely throughout, and it also shows the boys bringing ecstasy to a playground. These are 6th grade kids.
Who gave that to them?
Universal's, let's see. This was, somebody wrote, I guess it's a reviewer. It says Universal's putting out a film called Good Boys featuring 6th graders playing with sex toys, drugs, porn, and worse. The poster brags it's rated R because it features crude sexual content, drugs, and alcohol, all involving tweens. And this reviewer says, who's the audience for this?
And why aren't the producers arrested for pedophilia?
Yes, or the parents. They're putting their children at risk. And so one Twitter person said the audience for this movie just killed himself a couple of days ago. The pedophile, Jeffrey Epstein. Because that's why I said, I agree with this guy. Who's the audience for this? And then somebody else said, I think this was supposed to be the in-flight movie on the Epstein plane. So again, this is not healthy for our society and for our young people.
Who would think of this crap?
Right. And then I agree with you. You know, the parents, the producers, these are sexual.
How did they get away with it? How could they even get so far to even do it?
Exactly. So, anyway, going to something else, hopefully a little bit more. I know. I don't
Do you
call
have anything
this.
good to tell me?
I don't know. This is about Trump again. His proposed space force. Haven't you heard about that?
Yes, it's
Okay.
connected to the Brazil fires.
Anyway, apparently, according to this article, it's taking another step closer to taking off. And it's this week that a Space Combatant Command will launch later this month. They're saying August 29th, which is a key step toward materializing the space-focused branch. So Space Command, Space-Com, the Defense Department's first new combatant command since 2009, will launch August 29th. Air Force General John J. Raymond will command Space-Com and 87 units, so it's going to be big. They said they will cover missile warning, satellite operations, space control, space support, and the president said our adversaries, and he of course doesn't say who those adversaries are.
I know who they are.
Our training forces and developing technology to undermine our security in space. They're working very hard at that. That's why my administration has recognized space as a war-fighting domain and made the creation of the Space Force a national security priority and could be operational as early 2020 if, and I'll say when, Congress approves the necessary funding. And then I've been reporting on this all along. Area 51 event. Now Nevada officials are drafting emergency declaration plan ahead of Storm Area 51 event. And they're fearing that things could get ugly, and they're predicting about 40 to 50,000 people could show up.
I don't believe it.
And the officials are saying that cell phone service will go down and police resources are stretched. So somebody's going to show up.
I don't believe it.
All the
Not
things that are being
50,000.
said.
Maybe 5
Will be.
dopeniks will show
It'll be
up
interesting
with
to see
beer
what happens because
and pot.
they don't let this one die either. So it's like your Yellowstone story. You know, it keeps going. They're giving you a little bit of information. This one, Area 51 thing, they keep giving you a little bit of information. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
That's really stupid.
Well, it is stupid, but they are not letting it die.
Yeah. So
Okay.
anyway.
So, we have a September class. We got a couple spaces left in that one, and like we told you about.
Yeah, but before that,
Yeah.
August 29th is my webinar with Dr. Carlos Jaramillo in Quito.
Yeah, it's the same day the Space Force is going to launch.
That's a clue.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that's in Spanish.
It'll be both English and
bilingual.
Spanish.
So if you want to, there's a link on our website, and it's been going around Facebook. You can sign up.
And then your webinars.
Well, they will begin after the September class. But before that, I just want to mention that we have announced now you can pre-order our 2 new books, King Bee, Queen Bee, and Template of Godmind. We do suggest you buy these as a set because
I wrote them to read together.
right, because the pre-orders are already coming in, and some people are getting one book or the other.
Yeah, you should get both. I'm not saying just for the. It's because you need to understand the information together.
Exactly. And so we do have the set offered at a very, very, very discounted price for our members. So if you're a member of our website, get your membership at expansions.com, less than $1 a day, then you can get a really great discount on both of the 2 new books. I don't have the covers to show you, but they are online. You can take a look and read what they're about. And that's fascinating. And those of you who are coming to our September class, you will be the first to receive those books, because I will have them before then, but I may not be able to get them shipped until after the class. So that's why we have the October 1 ship date. So pre-order, once October 1 comes, that we will not be offering the same great price, so now is the time to pre-order. Okay?
Yeah, and I will be collaborating with people in Turkey and in Jordan for very special projects coming up in the future.
Yeah, so we always have lots of things going on here at expansions.com.
And I wanted to say, I received a message this week from a lady in Turkey who came to my seminar in May in Istanbul, and very excited because I had done a section on fertility, and she had been trying to get pregnant for 15 years without success. No doctor could help her, and she said, because of my work, she's now pregnant.
Yeah, so she's thrilled.
No, I had nothing physically to do with that.
Good thing.
But I told
Otherwise,
her,
I have to get out the razor.
oh my gosh, no.
So, point being is we have a lot of information to offer you so you can help yourself. So instead of going to all these outside resources, as I said, less than $1 a day, you have access on a daily basis to Stuart and I, and no matter how many times I say this, people keep sending in their Q&A on Facebook and private messaging us and YouTubes, and we do not do Q&A there. If you're interested and you want to support us, get to know us, less than $1 a day. And yes, if once you pay for a month, you're obligated to a month. But after that, you can cancel your subscription anytime.
But you love me so much, you won't want to.
Most people find it I call it the best deal on the internet, and I firmly believe that. So expansions.com, get your membership today, pre-order your books, King Bee, Queen Bee. If your other books you're missing from your library, they all build one on top of another. We've been out there for decades and with a lot of information to give you. So don't sell yourself short. You can do it.
Plus, soon we will have preparation for the medical book coming out, which I'm very excited about that one.
And
but these other two, if you're coming in September, I hope you'll read them first.
I don't think they can read them first.
Well,
they're not going to be able to read them first,
well,
unfortunately. They will be able to pick them up at the class, however.
Yeah, but they must be read together because the information is based on each other.
Right, and then as we talked about the medical book that's coming out, that will be the basis for a January class. So if you're interested in January, then get a hold of customer support at expansions.com and get your name on the list, because our classes are always limited in size and they always fill. So that's what I have to say.
All right, that was good. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.
Time.
Bye.
Bye.